I'd like to call this January meeting of the Montgomery County Schools Board of Education to order. First on our agenda, we have a motion to adopt the agenda as submitted.
So moved.
Mr. Dozier?
Second.
Second, Ms. Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Next, I'd like to call on Vice Chair Lynn Epps for our devotion.
Good evening. I chose something that was given to me several years ago when I first started in the education world. If some of you remember Miss Deb Dunstan, she was a pre-K teacher that came from Canada. And it's a very popular poem, saying, however you want to say it, but I just want to read it and remind us all of why we're here. I think that we all will agree. So 100 years from now, it will not matter what your bank account was, the sort of house you lived in, or the kind of car you drove. But the world may be different because you were important in the life of a child.
Now, if we'll all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we have our period of public comment, but with no one signed up, we'll move on to recognitions. First, we have a recognition of esteem for Tip Harris. If anyone from her family or friends would like to come forward. Montgomery County Board of Education Resolution of Esteem for Tip Harris. Whereas our Heavenly Father, in His infinite love and wisdom, saw fit to call home Tip Harris on October 1st, 2024. And whereas her dedication to Montgomery County Schools for 33 years as a teacher were a living testament of her integrity and skill. And whereas her loss will be deeply felt, not only by those with whom she served, but also throughout her entire community and county. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Montgomery County Board of Education goes on record in expressing a sense of real loss and regret in her passing. That a copy of this resolution be conveyed to her family as an indication of our deep sympathy, and that a copy of the same be filed as a part of the permanent minutes of the Board of Education.
I think you can see how much we thought of it.
And now for the family of Wayne Wendell. Montgomery County Board of Education Resolution of Esteem for Wayne Lincoln. Whereas our Heavenly Father, in His infinite love and wisdom, saw fit to call home Wayne Lincoln on June 8, 2024, and whereas his dedication to Montgomery County Schools for 18 years as a teacher and coach were a living testament of his integrity and skill, and whereas his loss will be deeply felt, not only by those with whom he served, but also throughout his entire community and county. Now therefore be it resolved that the Montgomery County Board of Education goes on record in expressing a sense of real loss and regret in his passing, that a copy of this resolution be conveyed to his family as an indication of our deep sympathy, and that a copy of the same be filed as a part of the permanent minutes of the Board of Education.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm not as good and quick as mine is. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to recognize Mr. Allman, our interim superintendent.
So we've got some recognitions tonight for the staff at East Middle School. If I could get Miss Patty Bird, our classified employee of the month, and Mr. Marvin Smith, East Middle principal, come say a few words about this young lady.
It's easy. We did this 2 years ago, I recall, and I knew that she made my job really easy then, but I just had no idea how much easier she makes my job. Like, she protects me from a lot of mess that I don't even know about. She when you walk into a school building, the first person that you greet is Miss Bird, and she makes everybody feel welcome, and she takes care of everybody. And the things that she does for our school are just, if you haven't had her food yet, like whenever we have our staff celebrations, come by and get some dessert. She's just phenomenal, and I appreciate all that you do for us in our school. Absolutely. Thank you.
And if Miss Carrie Watkins would come forward, she is our certified employee of the month. Congratulations.
Miss Watkins, I don't, it's immeasurable, like the way that she connects with kids. I don't think people understand, like, it's one thing to know content knowledge and to know how to teach us a specific skill, but it's another thing to connect with every kid in your room. And whenever she's disciplining a kid or she has something to do with a kid in the hallway, I just walk on by and throw my hands up because I know she's got it. If she's got somebody in the hallway, it's because they've gone way beyond the limits of what she allows. She has super high expectations. She loves all of our kids. You see them in the hallway, you see them out in the courtyard working, you see them in the classroom, and she just does a phenomenal job, and I'm thankful for what you do for our babies. Good job. Thank you. Absolutely, thank you. It's a different temperature outside than it is in here.
Every month.
Will Miss Josephine Taylor come forward? So Miss Taylor is a student at the Early College, and she was selected as the Montgomery County Christmas card contest winner. So we want to thank you for submitting that, and we're proud to have accepted that as our representation for our Christmas card this year. So we have a certificate, and we have a $50 Amazon gift card for you. So congratulations, and thank you for submitting that. Congratulations.
Good job.
Good job,
Very
Jesse.
good.
Next on our agenda, we have our consent agenda, and need a motion to accept it.
So moved.
Motion is Blake, second is Jones. All those in favor?
Please notate that I refrain from that vote. I have a conflict.
All right, now we'll move on to Roman numeral number 1, and call on Mr. Marvin Smith from East. Yeah.
I get it.
Well, look, point of privilege.
Smith,
I read it wrong.
Yeah, I mean, like,
I thought I wouldn't have gone so far.
Oh, you're fine. Thank you so much.
For my reasons, I had a few more minutes out here to cool Well, it's a team effort. They're coming.
first of all, thank you for coming on your alternate day off.
No, it's okay. We're committed. We're committed.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I tried to change it.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Mr. Allman, Steps, board members, thank you so much for having us here. And we're just gonna talk a little bit, I know when we came in last year, we had the charge, we talked a little bit about some of the things that we were trying to do at East Middle School to try to improve culture and make it a more enjoyable place to be for our students and our staff. And we felt like those things would shift culture and that would help shift the data. So essentially, we're going to go back through the presentation that we did last year, just with some data to kind of back up the things that we talked about last year. So I'm gonna pass it over to Ms. Parsons and Ms. King, and then I'll finish up at the end.
All right, so we're going to begin with our school improvement team goals for reading for this school year. So by the end of this school year, East Middle School will increase overall reading proficiency to 57.8%. When you're looking at that as a whole, you're like, wow, that's a big number. But in comparison, when we're looking at last year where we were at for the 2023-2024 school year, for sixth grade reading, that's only 5 more students than we had proficient last school year. When looking at seventh grade reading, it's only 8 more students. And in the mindset of a teacher, in the mindset of leadership, we can do 7 students, we can do 8 students, we can do 10 students. So it's not too far out of reach. And for 8th grade ELA, it's 9 students for this school year. And how are we going to get there? We have a A curriculum, Amplify, which exposes students to above grade level text, and it's online, it's digital platform, as well as consumables, as well as our MTSS, our multi-tiered systems of support. We target students based upon criteria, and we identify support in order to fill in those learning gaps. And we utilize iReady, we utilize phonics for reading in order to help them be successful with below grade level content so that grade level content is accessible to them when they go into their core instruction.
When we're talking about the additional support, it's an all hands on deck type of deal. I have a group at 1:30 on Thursdays that I go and I pull from math every Thursday, this group of 3. And it's flexible throughout the school year, but Ms. King teaches the group, Ms. Parsons teaches the group. We have everybody, all those additional support people are pushing in to support the learning needs of those that need additional support to support the core.
And I think the kids see us in a different light, like they see us as teachers, oh, you can help us, and we're on their team. So the school improvement goal for math for this school year is to increase math proficiency to 52.8%. When looking at those numbers, 6th grade only needs to gain 5 more students with proficiency from last school year. 7th grade, 11 students, and then our 8th grade math, 11 students as well. But we also offer Math 1, which takes some of those students away from the 8th grade curriculum. Second semester, they take Math 1, which is a high school credit course, and they take the EOC at the end. How do we achieve this goal, or how are we going to achieve this goal this year? Small group instruction, targeting students, looking at their data, pulling them, working in a small group so that they can make grade level content accessible to them, as well as our MTSS, the multi-tiered systems of support.
And not only do we have to just, reach those additional 8 or whatever we need to meet our goal, we have to retain the ones that we were already where they need to be. So
Grow them.
we have to grow them as well. So one of our school improvement team goals for this year is to increase teacher attendance by 5% for our school year. So in correlation with our district's goal of teacher attendance, we do little things each month. I know October we had 14, November 13. We don't have our numbers for December yet, but doing things like a coffee bar or just something to show them that duty-free lunch. They love duty-free lunch. But
And she's talking about perfect attendance with those numbers.
yes,
Like, students.
sorry, perfect attendance. And Miss Evans made me cry out there, so my nose is, I'm just a mess, and I'm sorry, but she made me cry, so I apologize. But yes, this is teacher attendance, because we all know that that goes hand in hand with what our kids do, how they perform. So the teachers love it. We talked about it today. I'm interested to see what our number is for December. But we just try to show them that we appreciate them and thank them for showing up. And student engagement, we want to give our students something to look forward to and keep them as busy as possible. We have clubs. They get to choose their club. They love clubs. If you cancel clubs, you're going to have an absolute problem on your hand. The nightly news, we have a daily news broadcasting. It's amazing. The kids love it. If they don't get to watch it in tag, you're going to hear about it. Nights on the Rise, that's our student leadership group. Those are the ones that you guys will meet when you come to our school. We just got a new part-time translator, and she is in the classroom helping our kids, because our number of kids that we get weekly that don't speak English, and they're expected to take the same test that everyone else takes in the same language that everyone else takes it in English, is just alarming. But the addition of her and just seeing her with some of our kids that are getting it and they know math and they can, understand a little more, having that extra person there is wonderful. Small group instruction, like Ms. Parsons said, getting those individual groups. The heterogeneous grouping, having mixed abilities. We have kids who, they knew what class they were going to be in. They knew that if they were going to be in the lower class or the higher class. And, the first year we did this, we had kids come to the office and say, I think you got my schedule wrong. You got me in there with the kids I'm not supposed to be in there with. And we're like, no, go back to class, you're good. Intramurals, we have intramurals every month. Same thing as clubs, they live for intramurals. These are behavior, check educator's handbook, and unfortunately if you have a referral, you're not going. So, which is a good thing, it's motivation. Our morning announcements, we have student-led morning announcements. Kids love to do that. We have an application process they have to go through. Student government and Nights on the Rise are kind of two same but very different. Our student government has like a president, a vice president, and things like that. They work together. They work closely together. But our level 2 depths of knowledge training focus that we're undergoing right now to get our teachers, asking why, getting them to asking deeper level questioning instead of just base level, surface level content.
Okay.
Oh. All right, staff empowerment. Like I said, nobody wants to work somewhere where they don't feel appreciated, especially for what teachers make. So we have the last Friday of the month, we call them Final Fridays, and they live for those. They have duty-free lunch, and they get a little treat. We try to correlate it. I'm a very thematic person. In the fall, we have fall things and apple things. They love it. Duty-free lunch every now and then, kind of like a cult being good. We'll give them little passes or something. I know Ms. Kissel, our communities and schools person, does duty-free lunch for teachers, like on a monthly thing. Our district staff attendance recognition, they really enjoy that. So our professional development, our PD that we do not only like at the county level, but at our school, like we let teachers be leaders of PD. We let them sign up. Do you have something you want to tell people or you want to share with people, and make them feel involved. Not just make them feel involved, involve them. reduce transition. We have worked really, really hard to, after looking at Educator's Handbook and crunching our times and stuff, most of our stuff happened during transition. So we've tried to reduce that number, and it works really well for us. We had to, Ms. Parsons had to work really hard on some things and crunch our numbers to help us figure it all out, but it increases our instructional time, so we get more bang for our buck. And that's my part there.
So here we looked at the teacher working condition surveys over a couple of things, just historical data or historical degree analysis. The one thing that does stick out to me on this is obviously the students follow the rules for student conduct. That shows a decrease over the last couple of years or up until this year. I tell you, it's hard to ask people to do these things at the time of the year that they ask them to do them, because that's when people are fed up in March, like you're not normally getting the bit. But for our data, when we look at Educator's Handbook, it's steadily going down every year. Like we had 600 referrals the first year. We had significantly less than that last year, and I think we're on the trend this year to have significantly less than that. But that admin routinely forces student rules for student conduct. Student leadership supports teachers. I think that the teacher support piece, which Ms. King was just talking about, that's a big thing for us. And the school leadership routinely enforces the rules for student conduct. So it's one thing if they don't do it, we do enforce consequences. Like we do believe, like if you're not going to do what you're supposed to, like we're going to hold you accountable for it because you know the rules, you see the matrix. We talk about the things we expect. So students we're holding students accountable because we feel like that's a matter of maturation. And middle school students, between 12 and 14 aren't necessarily known for their great decision making. So we're trying to teach them how to be better human beings a little bit at a time. So when we look at the IRR data, this is the growth data from the first year from last year and from this past school year from the 2022-23. And this is a breakdown of all of the subgroups. When you look at the data from all the subgroups from 2022-23, the only place where we met was in students with disabilities. That was the only subgroup where we met growth expectations. And again, you're comparing, one of my big things is a lot of times proficiency deals with socioeconomics. Like, it's a matter of books in the house, are you read to as a student? And we would love to have every student in our building proficient 1,000%. That would be phenomenal. But we don't. And we're aiming at 50%. We're trying to grow. But we can grow every kid in the building, and that's a big emphasis of mine. So we really worked really hard on those things last year as far as the small group instruction. And I think the heterogeneous grouping was a big deal for me. Because if you take all the kids that have one ability, high or low, whatever you want it, you're telling the other kids that they don't belong either up or down. So what we did was we broke up our groups and we have a little bit of everything in every class. And it does something to the teachers too, because they feel like I'm not just teaching here. I'm not just teaching here. I'm teaching all of them. So you can compare your data if you're comparing apples to apples. So if you look, for all of our students as a school, we exceeded growth as a whole school. Our Black students met, our Hispanic students exceeded, our white students met, our multiracial students met, our economically disadvantaged and ELLs met, that's our English language learners, and our students with disabilities met. So we feel like a lot of the things that we're putting in place, not only trying to take care of our students, but taking care of our teachers, made a dramatic difference in our growth data last year. So if you look for each subject, in 2023, the reading growth, the 22-23 year, I don't want to read this to y'all, I don't want to insult your intelligence, but growth from an EVOS perspective is from -2 to 2. If you fall in between those, then you've met growth. And we struggled 2 years ago. And I think some of it from my perspective, which is why we made the group in the way that we group students, if you take all of your, and if you looked at it, like even our AIG students didn't grow as well as they should have. So I think it was beneficial to everybody, but our all growth, we exceeded that. We exceeded it in reading, we exceeded it in math. I think it's 85.2% of our students met the growth that was expected in reading and 90% met in math for growth. So we feel like we're on the right track. And the next slide is just a couple of quotes. But the mission that we have this year, or the theme that we put forth this year, was challenge accepted. Like we did what we accomplished, what we set out to do last year. But to me, that's not enough as a coach. Like if you win one championship, the best thing next to that is just to win another one. So we're trying to continue to improve and get better, and continue to put things in our basket and try to move the needle for all of our kids in our building.
Mr. Smith, have you been able to have any intermediate testing to see whether you've reached, the 5 students, the 8 students that you were talking about? I know you don't have the final testing yet, but is there any intermediate testing done to see?
I'm gonna start wearing a hat when I come in here. I'm just letting y'all know. It's not because I'm disrespectful, it's because I don't have any hair. It's not keeping out my eyeballs over here. Yeah, I was like, that tissue.
Dr. Hagel is all about that.
Yeah. But yes, we do our ready testing beginning of year. When we come back next week, we'll do our mid-year testing, so we'll be able to check and see. So
See how close you are to where you want to be.
yes, sir. So, and we're looking to close, so it'll say, like, in the data, it'll say students are on grade level, 1 grade level below, 2 grade levels below, more than 2 grade levels below. We're trying to close the color of the ones that are more than 2 grade levels below, and we're trying to make the bright colors, or the green and the blue, much larger than the red and the yellow.
And within that though, when we get those results, we will adjust those groups.
Yep.
So like the groups that we pull, our small groups, like for our MTSS, either you've mastered what we have been working on or not, and you will stay in our group, or we will target new kids who may now be presenting with a different struggle. So we'll check, that data will tell us that too.
And we have some, I'm sorry, Ms. Parsons. We have some kids that like fly through the test because they want to get to games or whatever. So this, like, you don't belong in there. I need you to show me on this next assessment. Like, otherwise, I'm going to show you, the data is going to tell me what I do with you.
Yeah, when they ask, how do I get out of here? I'm like, you do well in January.
Yep.
In January, you'll do well. And then I have kids who are like, how do I keep coming to you forever? And I'm like, you got to do well. Do well.
And that kind of leads into my question. I was gonna ask, do the kids keep any kind of data notebooks or data? Go ahead.
With data notebooks, the kids know their data. They know, with NTSS, the students are progress monitored every 2 weeks. And so they know what they need to score in order to move out, routinely. And when they hit that goal, they celebrate with PDSA, our Plan, Do, Study Act. They know this is what the goal was for the classroom or for the grade level on that particular standard, and here's where you were based upon that end of unit assessment, and this is where we need you to be, and they see their growth.
And we also have individual meetings with every at-risk kid in our school. Like, we divide them up by grade level, and we physically talk to each kid, and like, hey, this is where you are. Let's help us figure out what's going on. How can we help you? And with them knowing that we know, they do better. I mean, some of them, we won't have as many in January, hopefully.
We started doing it after report cards, so that we create a spreadsheet, and anybody that failed a class, I don't care if it was math, science, or if it was if it was construction or art, like, we need to have a conversation about what did you do, like, and so we're getting ready to have these meetings next week after report cards go out about, why you didn't do these things, or I saw that you improved, keep up what you were doing, I know that you're capable of it.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Don't catch a cold walking out
I'm
there.
gonna have to go get a Gatorade. Thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna fist bump because I'm over here.
No problem, I see you. Thank you, guys.
So in the board packet, I've got a memo in here. So it's time to talk about mid-year review. And I say talk about it instead of scheduled dates because I want to pose some options to you guys. Typically, our mid-year review has limited data. And I've had some board members kind of question why we hold the mid-year review. So I wanted to offer you guys some options. So in that memo, I proposed 3 different options here. And this is a different year this year as well, because we're reaching the end of the 2020 to 2025 strategic plan. So it's time to develop our next 5-year strategic plan. So that's going to be the focus of our mid-year review this year. So the 3 options that I've got is we can continue to hold the mid-year review as we traditionally have, and we will mainly be discussing the first semester high school data that we have, and that would be English 2, Math 1, and Math 3, because the biology data is being held because they're in a standards review process, so we will not get any biology data back until the fall. So we won't be even able to discuss that. Second option, with it being a strategic plan rewriting year, we can prepare the new plan for discussion at a mid-year review session. Also, third option would be with it being a strategic plan rewriting year, we can prepare the new plan and we can present it to you guys at the February meeting and present what mid-year data we have as well at that regularly called meeting instead of having a special called meeting. And then the last paragraph there is there if you guys choose to hold a traditional mid-year review. I've got some dates there that have been proposed, but it's open for y'all's discussion to tell me what you guys want to do.
I'm gonna put the third option, having it at the, because too many times we go to that, and it's just a rehash of what we've already been doing before.
The end of year review, I see it as more beneficial
Right.
because we actually have all of the
You got the
data.
data.
Exactly. So that's why I wanted to propose that, because I have heard that from some board members. So
Yep.
again, it's y'all's decision, but we will, do what the board asks.
Who works on the strategic plan? Who, your leader?
We have strategic review teams, so it's primarily administrative staff at the school level and the central office level, and then we pull in some instructional folks, the instructional facilitators, and some of the coordinators as well. It typically runs about 45 to 50 staff members, and we break them up into 4 different teams to hit the different goal areas that are listed.
How was Mr. Dozier on like the third option? Any of those dates, are you looking at that third option being in February as well?
The third option will be at the regular schedule.
At the regular
meeting. Yeah,
meeting.
we will just develop the
Even better.
presentation and just do it in the February meeting. Which will be a tight window, being that the February meeting's like I think on February 3rd, but we will get it done.
Any more discussion? So just prepare to be here till 10 o'clock.
Not necessarily, not necessarily.
Whoever-
We're only talking about, you guys don't want me to present that.
We get somebody
Jack's
else
back
that
there
talks
laughing. So, but yes, it won't be, we'll do a presentation on the new goals. And again, those goals will be based upon our discussion, and we will present those to you. After that, we will take y'all's feedback on those goals. We will still send those goals out for community review like we did in the 2020 cycle, because we want community member feedback on those goals as well. So we will develop that after that, and then we would bring that back for your approval. We'll bring that back in March for your first read, and then approval at the April meeting. And then that will go into effect starting July 1 for the 25-26 school year. But we will just do the initial presentation on what conversations we've had about where we need to set the goals, and we'll present that individually.
In agreement with number 3?
Make a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Dozier, Mr. Dozier made a motion to accept the third option. Have a second.
Second.
Second, Ms. Epps. All in favor? Right. Now I'd like to call on Mr. Sam Thorpe with the North Carolina School Board Association for an update on their superintendent search. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you, board members. On behalf of NCSBA, on behalf of myself, thank you so much for trusting us with your superintendent search. We're really excited to begin working with you. As you know from my presentation, there are several draft documents that I actually have to get your input on, your board's input on, and approval of in order to get your search officially started. The first of those documents is a draft timeline. The only date that I need your input on and approval of is the application deadline. When we make the application live, we have to set on the platform a date and time certain, usually midnight on the date that you pick, or 11:59 rather, PM, that the applications have to be submitted by. You'll notice on your timeline that the draft timeline has February 10th as the application deadline. The only reason I did that is because it's a day short of 5 weeks. I've been doing this for a long time. We used to do 8 or 9 weeks for advertising, then we went to 7, then we went to 6. And this is from feedback from boards and candidates, by the way. And then we went to 5 about 2 years ago. Most boards, except for one of the last 16 or 17 that have done right about 5 weeks, and that's been a comfortable window, both from the candidates that apply, as well as board members in terms of feeling like that's a sufficient amount of time to feel like they got a sufficient number of applicants. That is your window, though. So if you would like to advertise for longer, that is fine. I would discourage you from advertising for shorter than 5 weeks.
What day is that? Monday?
It's a Tuesday, I think February 10th. Oh, it is a Monday. Forgive me, I apologize. That's why it's a day short. Correct.
And that will be 5 weeks, beginning when?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, okay.
And it's a day shy, since tomorrow will be Tuesday, but it ends on Monday.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Discussion.
Just need a motion to, if
So
that's
moved.
what the board, okay.
You said 5 tends to be the average timeline that most other school systems have.
So it's what they actually do, is 5 weeks. There's one board, Orange, who, because they were really tight on time, did it for a little bit less. And there's one other board, Gaston, that, because it was the summer, and I think they were really busy, and they just wanted to take their time. They advertised for, I think, a little over 8 weeks. But it did not, I think, materially impact either case. Everyone else has gone with right about 5 weeks, and that's been a comfortable. I also get a lot of feedback from candidates, and they have found this to be a sufficiently long enough window. You know, they're really busy too.
Not a lot
The folks that are applying. I'm
Not a
sorry,
lot of holidays in that time span.
there are
We
not.
don't have to worry about that.
All right, so I have a motion. Mr. Dozier
Okay.
made a motion to approve that application deadline of February 10th. Second, Ms. Taylor. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Okay, so the next item that I need your input on and approval of, and I've actually heard from one board member already, we are gonna update, it's the vacancy announcement, so the second document in your folder on the right-hand side. In the second paragraph about the community, I neglected to mention Lake Tillery. I apologize for that, I only mentioned Baden Lake, so I'm gonna update that to include Lake Tillery, and then on the back, under area information, it's at the very bottom on the left-hand side. I like to include hyperlinks to your school system website as well as websites describing the community. Inadvertently, we included a link to the Thomasville Chamber of Commerce. I apologize for that. We're obviously going to keep that out of the draft vacancy announcement. I'm happy, but we're happy to also update it in as much as the board would like to. What boards struggle to do with a vacancy announcement, if you don't mind me giving a little advice, is striking the right balance between including enough information to obviously let candidates know of the vacancy and keep their interest and their curiosity, but not so much that you sort of scripted for them how to fill out their cover letter, how to fill out their application, give them sort of a roadmap. Otherwise, it takes away the application's ability to serve as a screening tool.
Right, so I had asked everybody on the board to have their 3 top characteristics that they would like to see in a superintendent. And so what I hear you saying is, this is not necessarily where we want those characteristics, because that gives a roadmap for them to say what we are telling them we want.
So
Is that what I hear?
Yes, yes. That also sounds a little bit more like what would be included in the leadership profile, which we have scheduled for February 3rd. So once you've had a chance, and I know you've already been getting lots of feedback, I'm sure you have, from the community and staff about the superintendent search, I say that sincerely. You'll also get a lot of feedback if you'd like to do the surveys, and I think you will. And generally boards like to wait to identify what's most important to them once they've had a chance to review all of that feedback from the community. And then we take the top characteristics and experience identified by the community and staff in the surveys, and we create a rough draft, a first draft of a leadership profile. And then, of course, at that meeting, when I present the survey results to the public and to you, you will have had a chance to review not just the bubble data, but also the written feedback. That is really where you get a lot of substance in terms of the feedback. You'll have a chance, have had like a week or hopefully a little bit more to have reviewed that, and then we would take that draft leadership profile and at that meeting update it to include anything that you've heard, that you've read, that you maybe heard at a public comment at a meeting that you'd like to include in that leadership profile. And really the profile's to help you as a board, to guide you when you're reviewing applications, drafting interview questions, interviewing applicants. The leadership profile isn't really supposed to be a roadmap to applicants. That being said, lots of applicants, when we do a search, will ask for the survey data, which is a public record. They'll watch the meeting if you have it available, or they'll look at the minutes of the meeting to see what was included in your leadership profile. There's still a week left after February 3rd before the application deadline. Folks will go and potentially update their application materials, maybe to include more information about themselves that references one of the things that's really important to your community and staff, or to you, the board. So, no, I would not include the top characteristics. I would save those until you've heard from your community and staff, and then make sure that we update that leadership profile to reflect everything that you as a board, individually as well as collectively, want to see in that profile, and then use that document moving forward. In this one, I would not go into great. In vacancy announcement, which would, if you approve it, go live tomorrow, I would not include. There are lots of folks who are really interested in this job, but you want them to do the homework of going to DPI and looking at your student achievement data, going to your meetings and reading the minutes, looking at the financial health of your district. And that's what the folks who are on fire for this job will do. If you put too much in there and you sort of tell them what you're looking for, there's some folks who are really good at filling out an application and sometimes even interview. And it hampers your ability to screen as a board, to know who really wants this job versus who is really good at reading and saying what we want to hear. Yes,
Questions.
Yes, sir.
One is the job listing, application list, or job listing, is it gonna have a salary range?
We discourage you from doing that. We can do that.
Well, I'm not saying we should, I'm just asking, would it have?
The reason we discourage that primarily is because it can tie your hands in negotiations down the road, in terms of you might have somebody, not only do you limit who's going to apply, sometimes where you set it, but you can also put it too high or too low, depending on who you end up negotiating with. Also, as a general rule, candidates have at least some idea of what you were paying your outgoing superintendent, though that's not necessarily instructive of exactly what you're going to offer and negotiate. But all superintendent contracts are a public record filed with DPI. The candidates who are really interested in this job know what you were paying your outgoing superintendent.
Right. My next question, did I dream that when you were here before, that you told us you were gonna, once the application started coming in, you were gonna wiggle those down to X amount?
That may have been a different, that is actually the difference between our search firm and many other search firms, is we don't screen applicants. We're not gonna take out, you get all the application materials We give you as much information, as good of information as possible, and we help you process that information. But we're never gonna tell you which application to look at or not look at, who to interview, not interview, who to hire or not.
Did anybody else hear that, or was I the only one that heard it?
I think I heard.
I thought I heard, do what, Tom?
Not from him.
Okay.
Yeah.
With the other group. Well, in the question.
And a lot of
I had-
other groups do that.
Right.
And if that's something that you
Well,
want.
the concern I have, let's say for argument's sake, 50 people apply.
It's not gonna happen.
It's not gonna happen.
I would just tell you very candidly that we used to. There were times in 2017, 2018, even 2019 where we got high 40s.
Right.
I think we even got close to 50 applicants. Now we're seeing much more, and this is not me telling you how many you're going to get, because no one knows.
Right.
But beginning with the pandemic, we saw a huge drop off in the number of applications, even to the point that we would see 15, 16, and 17 applications. That has gone up. We've now seen somewhere in the range of 20 to 25, sometimes even as high as 28. I think one recent search got into 30s. I think there were 32 applicants. I think you may have half that many applicants. You will not have. I would be truly shocked if you had 50 applicants for this.
Well, I mean, one concern I have is, I know you're gonna vet, but you're not gonna vet until after we look at all the applications. And personally, I don't wanna spend time looking at an application and 2 weeks later you tell us, this guy got arrested for a DWI or something like that, or girl, whoever it might be.
Right.
Can that not be done before we get the application?
So any HR professional, attorney who works in the HR world would tell you that anytime you receive a lot of protected class information that you might get from an internet search, for example, or criminal background check, could expose you to some liability, which is why we save some of those steps for farther along in the interview process after you've had a chance to truly, without any bias, from protected class information you've found, from some sort of report that we've generated or research that we've done, make your own decision. We have found that boards feel sufficiently informed at each stage of the process that they're not wasting their time on an interview or on negotiating with a candidate, if that makes sense. There are, like with any job, there are going to be some applications that you're not particularly impressed with, and some candidates that you may not spend as much time with their materials. But that should be your decision, not a consultant. Our view is it should not be a consultant's decision, not only because of the legal aspects I just mentioned, but also because I don't live here, worship here, work here, know the staff and the community here. I could never begin to, most of what you're assessing really isn't just the hard skills of doing the job, but the soft skills of connecting with you as a board, connecting with your staff and relating to your staff and your students. I could never begin to do that in the way that you can and were elected to do. And so,
But I'm referring more to the red flags out there
Right.
that we're not gonna find.
if there are disqualifying red flags, those will be brought to your attention.
But
The
not
hard
until
work is-
after we go through all the applications.
Generally, if there is something extremely disqualifying, we would find a way to let you know that contemporaneous with your review of the applications. But it would need to be something materially disqualifying, not just something that you personally find objectionable and would not want to advance the candidate for. And that is actually more rare than you would think. Sometimes there is a conviction or something very widely publicly known that makes the candidate, obviously unlikely to advance. In which case we would bring that to your attention contemporaneous with your review of the applications, or we would encourage you to look closely at a certain thing in an application. But again, deciding whether or not to review it, deciding whether or not to consider that candidate is going to be up to you, the board to decide.
It's a time-consuming job.
It is laborious, but I would tell you it really is the most important decision you make. And honestly, the hard decision is when you have 2 or 3 really great candidates. It gets really, really hard to find all 3 of these can do it. Which one's going to fit best with us? Which one's going to take us to where we want to go? That's where boards really struggle. It's not in figuring out which ones are obviously not going to work out. It's in the few that are really, really strong. That can be really tough. And that's what we're here for. And I'm here till you find one.
Well, let me ask this question.
Yes, sir.
Let's say for argument's sake, we get 10 applications.
Yes, sir.
And we look through it and we meet and then we say, I mean, do you have a number through experience as far as, out of 10, you may want to take your top 4 that you guys like and interview?
Sure. We recommend that you identify when you're reviewing applications somewhere between 5 to 7 or 6 to 8 applicants to interview, just because that's usually the amount that boards interview. Have I had boards interview 12 or even 13 applicants? I have. I've even had boards that wanted to interview every single applicant. But what I would tell you is that with each step of the process, you gain a little bit more clarity. And after you've reviewed the application some more closely than others, you will have a sense. Some board members will come to that meeting with 1, 2, maybe even just 1 applicant that they want to interview. Some will come with 9 or 10. But what you'll find is that there is some general consensus, at least around 3, 4, or 5, that you want to interview. But it's usually in that range of somewhere between 5 to 8. But again, that's where we can have that conversation, and you'll have a lot more information to figure out just how strongly you feel about interviewing 7 versus 8 or 5 versus 6.
So we'll have all the background stuff that you guys do before we pick who we want to interview?
You'll have all of their application materials. What you won't have are the internet searches, the social media searches, and the test score data, the achievement data. But again, the reason for that is because of the protected class information that you learn from us going and pulling social media profiles and internet searches of the candidates. That being said, if you were to learn anything materially disqualifying about one of the applicants, you still have plenty of time to not move through with an interview, ask another candidate to come and interview. It's very rare that that happens, but sometimes it does, and we can absolutely work with the board to figure out how to move forward on that.
I don't want to spend 4 hours with somebody and then find out a week later he's a member of ISIS. So that's why I want to make, that's why I'm not sure why all that background check's not done.
So we used to do internet and social media searches and test score data for all 30 applicants or 25 applicants, and what we found is that boards struggled to review just the application materials alone, much less sometimes hundreds and even 1,000+ pages of internet searches, and that they would not review them very closely, and then when they came to the interviews, they would find out later about something that had happened. It's so cumbersome to review all of that information.
Well,
so that's the practical standpoint.
I understand that
Yes,
part, but I'm saying we pick, based on looking at their applications, we pick 5 that we think we'd like to interview.
Right.
Could we then, before we sit down
That's
with,
what I'm going to do. I'm
Okay.
going to do
Okay, so
internet and
So the
social
five
misunderstood.
that we give you, you would say,
I would go and do the internet and social media searches.
Okay,
And find
so
a lot
that's-
out.
yeah, that's what I
so
misunderstood.
not when they come.
I then share that
Right.
information
But when
with
we
you prior
identify
to the
the-
interview.
Yeah, then that's great. I'm on board with that.
Okay.
I misunderstood you a while ago. I thought you said, not till we interview them would you do all the social media stuff.
That we will do before you sit down with them.
Okay,
And
great.
very rarely, but sometimes, boards do find something in an internet search that we either bring their attention to or you bring to our attention. And we change.
Like you said, he has that time to pick somebody else if you
Yeah.
want.
But I also want you to know the due diligence we will not do until you've identified the more thorough due diligence for obvious reasons. That involves checking references. That's just a much more invasive check that boards, again, it's It's a lot of information, but you also want to wait until you're seriously considering someone for the vacancy before you ask them to provide all of that information out of a professional course.
And typically, how long do the interviews last?
Boards do somewhere between, well, I've had boards do 2+ hours. I think that's way, I have found that boards find that exhausting and too long.
2+ hours?
I have. And on the short end, I've seen boards do 45 minutes. What I think is somewhere between 60 and 90 for the first round interview. Sometimes you land on 75 minutes as a compromise, but generally you need at least 60 to feel like everyone got to ask a sufficient number of questions and follow-up questions, and you got enough time to be in front of the candidate to let them expound on it.
You normally do it one time.
Like how many a day,
Interview
how
2 or
many a
3,
day?
one day, 2 or 3 days.
That's entirely up to you. I've done as many as 8 in a day. That is a really long day, and it has to start. It's your search, and it's sometimes what's
That's not
most
fair to
difficult
number
is
8.
scheduling.
You got a pulse? Yeah. Yeah, you good. We don't have any questions. And I'm sorry to monopolize
It's
the
fine.
questions here,
That's
but
just fine.
we pick, argument's sake, we pick 5.
Okay.
We interview them, after you do your due diligence, we interview them.
Yep.
And then, based on whatever we come to, we decide, okay, there's just 2 we want to go to the next round of interviews.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So most school boards do 2 rounds of interviews
Yes, sir.
to get to the candidates that do.
But if you need more rounds, that's fine. That
Okay.
sometimes happens. If you need to go back and interview some candidates that you did not interview the first time, you can do that. Again, that happens rarely, but if no candidate is ever told no for good. What they're told is that the board's not moving forward with their candidacy at this time.
Mhm.
And candidates know what that means. They were not selected for an interview. But that does not mean that they're completely out of consideration. And the same is true after the first round interview. Just because they're not a finalist doesn't mean they won't be a finalist down the road. That's
Right.
the point.
So I think I heard that a lot of times these are done off-site in a location that, so that everybody's not talking about
We
what's
encourage you to
happening.
do that.
Is that something we need to research as we come closer to February?
Yes and no. The open meetings law in North Carolina requires you to notice any meeting, even the special call meetings that we would be having to do the interviews, which means that you have to give the site, the location, but specifically the address and time, as well as the purpose of the meeting, which would be a closed session pursuant to the relevant subsections of the statute for why you're meeting, to consider confidential personnel information, sometimes to consult your board attorney. What that means practically is that everyone is going to know that the board's having the interviews. That being said, we still encourage you to have it somewhere other than the central office for obvious reasons. Sometimes you have internal candidates. It's really hard to keep confidential folks coming in and out of the central office. So we do encourage you to have it somewhere off-site, not somewhere expensive. Some boards do meet in hotels, but usually you can find a local government building, a parks and recreation conference room, something where either at cost or for free, they'll allow the local board to do their interviews. But it won't be entirely secret,
Right.
if that makes sense. But we do try to do it in as discreet and confidential a way as possible for you as a board, as well as for the candidates who don't want to get jammed up in their current job by applying for an interview instead of your superintendent vacancy.
The questionnaires, the sample questionnaires,
Yes, sir.
I thought there were some very good questions on there. When are they going to be sent out?
If you approve them tonight, those can be made live tomorrow. I think you can get an email from, assuming all of these documents are approved, we can make the application live tomorrow, and the surveys live tomorrow. I would share, obviously, the finalized vacancy and timeline with your board, as well as your board clerk, Ms. Davis. Most boards do put that on their website. They make that publicly available because they are public documents. We would then finalize the surveys, and I would share those links with your, is it Ms. Monticom, who's your marketing? I would share those with you. Help us in terms of sharing, you know how to share the stuff with the community and the staff, and make sure that it's separate. Yeah. You would help me, hopefully, in getting the surveys out and making sure that reminders get sent appropriately. And then I would send an email to you, the board, because a lot of board members ask us, can you just send me the hyperlinks, the community English and Spanish language version, so that you can post it on social media, send it on listservs. Some people send it to their church, or all sorts of different things. So obviously, I think by tomorrow is what I'm saying. End of business tomorrow at the latest.
And what's the timeline on, as far as getting all those back?
Right now, the window is 2 weeks for folks to fill out
Okay.
surveys. That also gives us enough time to organize the results and then come and present to you. I put the 3rd. I can work with you in terms of when you want to schedule that, but I would encourage you to do it at a minimum before you get the applications. The idea is that you will have heard from your community and staff, acknowledged what you've heard from your community and staff, and at least put some input and some thought into that leadership profile before you start looking at the applications, so that you have a chance to really take into consideration what they've shared with you.
That makes sense.
Thank you. I think that was my question at the December meeting, that I
Right.
felt like putting the cart
Right.
before the horse, as we're sitting here with principals, current and former principals in the
Correct.
building. I think their input
Hope y'all fill
is
it out.
essential as we move forward with this decision.
It
And
is.
so we need to hear and see and factor that in before we even look at the first applicant, so that we don't waste our time with someone that our current employees in our community do not want, based on the questions.
I would strongly, encourage you to do that. I know boards are really, really enlightened by what they, sometimes they're surprised by what they, sometimes they're touched, sometimes they're a little upset by what they read, but I always feel like they learn a lot from the surveys in terms of the pulse, sort of. The community.
What it said about the community here, we said we were 20 minutes from Pinehurst, is that something you're gonna leave out or put in the?
That's up
doc
to you.
after?
That's up to you. Yeah, I mean, folks know that. I mean,
No.
the ones that want it, they know that.
We don't want to play golf out there, Tom. Take it away from work. Golf takes too much time.
I've got to do about.
So the next thing we need to approve is
Is the vacancy.
The vacancy.
So moved.
Motion for Mr. Dozier to approve the vacancy.
Second.
Second, Mr. Blake.
and just to clarify, that was with the corrections that you
Blake
mentioned.
Tillery and deleting hyperlink.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, we're getting there. Next is the advertising. Obviously, we're going to advertise everywhere that's listed for free. If you want to spend any money on advertising, you can have that discussion as a board. If you don't, that's perfectly fine too. The one that we've highlighted in red, AASA, the American Association of School Administrators, I'm sure you've heard of it. We asked candidates as part of our application where they find the vacancy. The vast majority say they find it from AASA. That's the reason we highlight that and tell you about it. I appreciate that $559 is really expensive, but that's just, we would feel irresponsible to not give you that information.
That's one. Say that again. I'm sorry, I missed that part.
We ask candidates when they're filling out the application to
Right.
tell us where they found the vacancy.
Right.
And the majority, substantial majority, say that they have found it via AASA. That's why we encourage you to consider 30 days
I got you.
of advertising.
I mean, that's deep, but when you consider the amount of money we're gonna be putting into this already, I'd say we go ahead and do it.
Good professional organization.
The 30 days.
Yeah, just for 30
So
days.
30 days.
And what about
Yes, sir.
graduate programs like UNC Charlotte, UNC Greensboro, NC State, App State that have doctoral programs in education and leadership? Can we include those program directors as well, that they can send out to their students?
We can, most of those doctoral programs are keeping up with our website. and some various other notifications that would go out to them. A lot of those candidates are going to be members of AASA or some of these other groups that they're gonna see the vacancy for. And the truth is, a lot of folks already, the ones that are really interested in this job already know that you have it. They're actually just waiting for the application. But yes, that is where a lot of some of your up and coming folks will come from. Folks that are either just finishing or have just finished their doctoral work, maybe they're in a central office role, they've been a teacher, an AT, a principal. It's not always sitting superintendents.
Yeah.
That apply.
So need a motion to go with the free advertising and add the 30 days of the American Association of School Administrators.
So moved.
Mr. Dozier, second, Ms. Taylor. All in favor?
Okay, just two more things. One is the application. Again, most of the information in this is generic. Most vast majority of boards just take the application as is. We're also happy to adjust the short and long form essays. What boards have found, especially over the past year or two, is that they would much prefer asking specific pointed questions about the district or about something they're personally interested in for a live interview, for obvious reasons. But we're happy to customize the questions.
Yeah.
I make a motion to accept the application as is.
Second.
Ms. X made the motion to accept the application as is. Mr. Dozier, second. All in favor? No? Any opposed?
And the last item are the surveys. It's my understanding that you do want to do the surveys, you want to do the community and staff surveys, and you want to keep them as is.
Yeah, I think there were some good questions.
Another one I had a question about, and maybe they just marked it as not applicable or something, is the number 9 about graduation rate. Because I thought our graduation rate is pretty darn good. So I didn't know if we, since has ideas and approaches to improve graduation rate and prevent dropouts. And I think we're like pretty high in the state, right, Dr. Cagle?
Yes.
So, I mean,
My guess is it would be way down on
Not very
usually what
important.
happens if you're really strong in an area is that it's not very, it's just not top of mind.
yeah, that was
for
one
folks.
of the
But that's because it is top of mind
Right.
for some folks, right?
You did a good job.
I need a motion to approve the
Community and
surveys.
staff surveys.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Blake made a motion. Mr. Dozier, second. All those in favor? All opposed?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for
And
all
I'm
this
sorry I got
homework.
confused.
That's
Sorry,
all right.
questions. I apologize.
That's why I asked.
Good.
So
Just
what
be
do
on the
we hear-
lookout.
What will we hear next?
You will get 2 emails from me. One will include, I'll take the draft, the watermarks off the timeline, update the vacancy announcement, and take the watermark off it, finalize them in PDF, and send them to you, your board clerk, your PR person, folks. I'll also send an email a little bit later, and in that email, I'll explain the vacancy is live. I'll provide a hyperlink to it that you won't need to put on the website. We'll tell you, like we tell all boards, if you get an inquiry individually about the vacancy, give them my cell phone number, refer them to me. You don't want to create any even perceived bias by communicating with a candidate that's interested. So just let them know that you have my cell phone at this point. If you don't, reach out. I'll give it to you. And then you'll get a follow-up email that has all of the survey information. I'll email Ms. Lipicum, and then I'll email you as a board to let you know I've emailed her and provide the links that you can share with the community, English and Spanish language surveys, so that you can share them via email, social media, however, whatever you can do to get folks to fill them out is great.
And are there other languages we should include beyond Spanish?
Do we have, we used to have among
Very low population
very
now.
low.
Very small.
Yeah.
And then we also have some Creole students, but that's
Yeah.
not as well.
Yeah, the kids from, where's it over there? Livingston, they're from, can't think of, right? Dominican Republic. Yeah. Yeah, some kids over there.
So can we, is there a way that we can say,
Patience.
if you need this in another language?
So we would need to rely on your,
On
sometimes when boards have a specific population, we have run into that, they usually have a translator. I mean, we don't have one on staff, and it's, we have found that it's expensive to hire. So we hesitate to do that.
Right.
Like Creole, yeah, this be like French.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's French.
Okay.
It's the bastardization of French. One last question.
Yes, sir.
I said last, I want to think something else.
It's fun. And you can call them too, you know.
Yeah, but, will we receive the applications as they trickle in, or we will receive them all at one time?
We give them to you all at one time.
All at
And,
one time.
I mean, that's once everybody gets the same amount of information at the same time, but also the vast majority of applicants, they're grinding on it. They're filling it out in waves, they're going back and editing and revising. It's usually I get the vast majority of them.
The last week.
The night, yeah,
Okay.
the night before or the night of.
So there'll be like a final submit button for them, and then that's,
Oh, and then they start calling us, confirming that it came through, because they want it to, you know. We want to make sure how much time.
They learned that in high school, they take a college class, they want to make sure that essay got in.
I
Like it was
understand.
supposed, you know?
I've taken many tests, and I get it.
Is our website able to have these additions to it? I know that there was some issues. Are we gonna be able to get this up? We got it, okay. Just not the work.
We have that.
All right, well,
yeah.
All right.
That's great.
because the email thing's not done.
That's good.
It's too big of a file.
Does anyone else have any more questions for Mr. Thorpe?
Thank you.
Thank you all for your
Yes,
time.
thank you.
You'll hear from me
Careful on
tomorrow.
this wet weather.
Yeah, thank you so
And
much.
reach out with any additional questions.
All right, now I'd like to call on Ms. Letica for the marketing plan presentation.
Thank you for your patience and for coming. The objective for Montgomery County Schools, as we move forward in this school year and onto the next one, our objective is clear. We want to create a vibrant and connected school community, and we are going to achieve this by embracing diverse marketing strategies, both online with social media and offline with the newspaper, to be able to reach and retain more families. Our district summary is Montgomery County Schools has a rich history of preparing students for a global society. We're committed to not just academic excellence, but also building meaningful connections with our community, ensuring that every student is career and college ready. Our strengths, like our cutting edge programs in the middle and high school, with the CTE, exploratory classes, our innovative programs and state-of-the-art facilities. These are the bedrock of our success with our students. However, we're also aware of challenges such as student retention and enrollment and having to compete with these charter schools and private schools. Addressing these head-on is how we are going to grow, and that is the key to our growth. We have a multitude of opportunities from revamping our digital presence, like our website, to having a marketing committee, alumni spotlights, billboards. This is going to enhance alumni engagement and also enhance current student engagement as well. But because of this, we must navigate the challenges like our resources, cost, time, involvement, and communication to make these opportunities a reality. So our upcoming initiatives are designed to transform our outreach efforts. Each one is a step towards a more dynamic and inclusive school environment, ensuring that every voice in our district is heard and valued. Our first initiative is the websites. We're committed to turning our websites into dynamic hubs of information and interaction. We are training staff and maintaining content, and doing this will ensure that our digital platforms are both welcoming, informative for all users, and easier to navigate. As of today, every employee has a login. We've been working diligently with Finalsite, and we do have the single sign-on link on the district's homepage. It's right at the corner with district schools, and then it says login. So you just click that and enter in your username and password. And I gave each of you a little white slip that has your username and your password on it. And I have been conducting these website trainings at all schools, except for East Middle, Mount Gilead Elementary, and Green Ridge Elementary, which I'm planning on doing in the next 2 weeks. And I'm doing this website training to ensure that all of our media and marketing representatives, as well as our principals, are knowledgeable on navigating this new website, so they're not just confused when it comes to trying to add or take away stuff. Our second initiative is our social media. Social media is our gateway to daily engagement with the community, as a lot of people treat social media like Facebook, Instagram as their news source. Through consistent and thoughtful posts, we're going to share stories that inspire and inform, and making our schools a daily part of our families' lives, like posting pictures and videos in schools, what the students are doing, highlighting different clubs in the school system. And the marketing team, we are going to be visiting the west side on the first half of the week and the east side on the second half of the week, to stay up to date on the events that the schools are having and to take peeks inside the classrooms to spotlight some of our teachers that are doing a great job. So our third initiative is the outreach. Community outreach is more than just attending events in the community. It's about creating genuine connections with our town leaders and influential people in our towns. By listening to feedback and partnering with our local leaders and capitalizing on the partnerships that we already have, like with MCC, we aim to build trust and to show to the community what value that our schools will bring. The marketing team will also be communicating with the county, the town leaders, to get onto their calendars and see what events are coming up, what events we can be at, to market ourselves out there and in person so people can see faces with names. So our fourth initiative is our video content. Nothing tells a story like a video. Research has shown that videos, they encourage more engagement than just a picture on social media, especially videos that are less than 10 seconds long. These people, they see the video, they're like, I wonder what's going on at this school. Doing this, we're going to capture the spirit of our schools through weekly videos, showcasing the moments that make our district special and that differentiate us from all these other districts. And these videos will not just inform, but also inspire pride in our schools and help with that alumni engagement as well as current student engagement. The marketing team are also working on getting schedules from all the schools so that we can come to the schools at a time with very few distractions. Because the last thing that we want to do is to disrupt valuable learning time. And our goal for the 2025 school year is to weave a narrative that reflects the heart of Montgomery County schools. By doing so, we aim to increase enrollment, retain students, and cultivate a strong and supportive community. Thank you, and any questions?
District summary, this Montgomery County Schools is located in Troy, North Carolina. I'm not good at wording stuff. It just sounds like the schools are in Troy.
Yes, that would be our district, like our district office is located in Troy.
Yeah.
Maybe we add the district office, I think is what he was saying.
Okay. Yeah, I got you.
I would just like to say that I think you do a wonderful job with the social media. It's always good to see positive stuff come through. That and parents love it, and grandparents. Holy cow! You put a grandkid up there.
Yes. they will be tagging everybody in the family.
Yes.
Look at my
Yes,
baby.
and I think that's the best
Yes, I love to see it.
advertisement, whatsoever, that, and any kind of t-shirt or hat you can give them.
Yes, they love free stuff.
So it just blows my mind that we're a public school and we have to advertise like this. It's just crazy that we have to spend this much time and money on something,
It is.
that is your right to go to school. So, but I appreciate everything, and I love the new look that you give things. That's definitely how we're gonna capture, the younger, ones that are younger than me now. I have mine graduating and I won't have one anymore, so.
Good job.
Thank
Very
you.
good.
Thank you.
I have a question and a comment.
Yeah.
My question is, in one of the slides, I see the marketing team. Are you a one-person team?
I consider myself and my media and marketing representatives from the different schools my marketing team. I have about two to three people per school. I consider all of us a team.
Okay.
We work very well with
This
each
is
other.
quite an undertaking for one person. That's why I'm asking.
I have a team. I have help. I have loads of help.
Good. And my comment was, last night I was toggling between our board packet and different parts of the website. And so I really like your idea about videos. And as I kept getting the pre-K registration pop-ups of different
Yes.
links that I went, I thought it might be helpful to interview parents of current pre-K students to talk about how how beneficial pre-K has been for them, parents of kindergartners to talk about their story as to how beneficial their experience in Montgomery County schools has been, and that might be
A good
stronger
Yeah.
impact on the community, and maybe even the teachers, the pre-K teachers, like you said, those short clips of this is what they'll learn in my classroom, this is what we'll learn this year. And I think those little snippets might be helpful.
Yeah, I think Meredith Garcia has just got a huge social media following. I mean, she's gonna share it and then it's just gonna go out.
I will definitely be talking with Mr. Thomas.
I thought earlier this year you introduced, or somewhere it was on our website, the pre-K teachers.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So each one was
we-
introduced and all that. and
Yeah,
that
we're
was
doing
great.
that again because our pre-K and kindergarten registration is next month.
Right.
Very,
That's
very
awesome.
soon.
And then you got the Wicked Young Child in April that you can, stuff like,
Yeah.
it's just, yeah.
Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
And next, I'm call on Dr. Emily Shaw for our calendar option.
Just slide over to the podium. So last month, last month we had the first read for our calendar that our calendar committee spent several months working on. We talked about the differences, and this year was a little difference in the way that we presented the calendars. Usually we just come up with one calendar and say, hey, here's our ideas, would you approve it? But this year we came up with two calendars because so many districts throughout our state are doing an early start option. So we presented an early start option for the board as well as a traditional calendar that follows all the legal parameters put in place by the state. So tonight we actually need to take action on which calendar you would like to go with, or if you would like for me to go back to my calendar committee and restart, we can do that too.
The early start,
Is that the one you want?
I want the 8888. Gets us in trouble.
It's not legal.
Officially, our stance would be, like Max and myself, is it breaks the North Carolina school calendar law.
how many school districts, do we know out of 105, 106 school districts, how many are using that?
I do not have an exact number. I can get that, but it goes,
26 this year.
it's 26. Okay.
I thought you said 45.
I thought it was more, but I don't know for sure.
That's just really hard.
Have they been chastised unto death, or they just,
No, you don't need them.
or nothing's happened?
There's no teeth to the law.
There's no.
However,
However, I don't want to say that and then something happened, but as of right now, there's been no ramifications to them using the early start calendar.
I do know, if I read this correctly, Carteret, I believe, did that, and they had a lawsuit against them, and they had to go back to the drawing board for their calendar.
Union County did as as well.
Yes,
But
Union
it
County
was
did.
not the state filing the
Right.
lawsuit,
No, no, no.
it was a parent
It
group
was,
that filed a lawsuit against Union County.
Right, Union County was parents, and then Carteret, it was businesses because of tourism. They won't,
I don't think we'll have tourism. It's an issue, but, you know.
but I'm just saying that you all, if you're breaking the law, you're leaving yourself open.
Let's be legal when we get the new superintendent.
Well, Dr. Shaw, I think you may have shared this at the December meeting, but do you have any data on what the calendar committee and or school employees have said that they want?
So on the calendar bullet points for quick reference from last year, or from our calendar committee meetings, and I shared at the meeting last month, most are torn. There are some teachers and staff that really prefer the early start because it makes more sense, because especially at the high school level, your semesters are more balanced and you're not getting the shortened first semester, so that way we can get testing in before Christmas. But then there are some teachers that think about the strain that it will put on families this one year, because maybe they've already planned vacations, you know, for the summer. That's why we felt like it was important to go ahead and get the calendar adopted, whichever way we were going to go, so that way we could give families a fair warning. At the elementary school level, as far as the logistics of the calendar, early start versus late start doesn't really matter because they're going to be equal quarters anyway. Where the biggest impact comes in is at the high school.
But do you have information of like at Montgomery Central, at Montgomery Learning Academy, 80% of the teachers said that they want option B?
We did not poll it, because what we do is every school has a calendar representative, and they go out to their school and say, you know, hey, you know, what are your thoughts on this early start calendar that we came up with? They get the feedback, they bring that to the meeting, and then we shift any changes that need to be made on our calendar there in the meeting.
Because I see your notes and they're more about the half-days professional development,
Right.
but I didn't see
Yeah.
concrete evidence as
No.
to what the teachers and the building want, the principals.
Right. It's
they
just
want.
communicated through the calendar rep.
And I did hear some feedback from some of the teachers that, you know, we talked about taking those half days and making them a full day of, you know, learning versus having that half day to do their training. And some of them were kind of upset with that because they didn't want to do their training after work, which I can relate to. So I don't know if we go with something like that, if we can allow time in the day, like during our planning period, to do their, because I know that training is important too.
Yeah, and if the board sees value in those half days, we can certainly, you know, put those back in. That's not.
I mean, that's just the feedback that I had heard from a couple.
I think it's, you know, you try to get a sample from everybody as to what is wanted. You know, that we developed a calendar based on that, but for every person that likes it, somebody's going to need it another way. But we want to, you know, create a calendar that's going to maximize student days, instructional hours, and what's going to be beneficial to our staff. Our staff needs to like it too, because, you know, we certainly don't want to create a situation where they're going to get mad over the school calendar or feel like we are not supporting their voices and speak out that way. But I also told the calendar committee when we were working with them, you know, I told them that, you know, our job, you know, wasn't really to convince the board, do we want A or do we want B? Because, you know, we just wanted to create the calendar to say, hey, you know, here's a good option that will be supportive of us if we choose to start the school early. Here's a calendar if we choose to follow the law and start at the August later date.
I mean, if we're serious, and I'm assuming we all are, about improving test scores, the early calendar is a no-brainer.
Well, and I keep going back to what is best for the students. And sometimes lawmakers don't know that.
Yeah, and being off 2 weeks before you come back and take exams, I don't care how smart they are, that's gonna cause a problem for them, rather than going right into the exams with the early start.
And those are some, concerns that were brought up, and that's why, we went with the innovative calendar for the option that follows the parameters set forth by the state. So they would take that exam still before Christmas, but you would just have the shortened semester, by the handful of days versus the second semester.
And that is hard on the high school.
It's extremely hard. In the opinion of the calendar committee representative from the high school, from the early college, and from the from MLA, it is extremely difficult.
So that's, to me, is not best for the students.
It cuts out many instructional hours. From that.
But that's not the early start we're talking.
No,
No,
that's the
that's-
traditional.
that's-
That's the traditional.
that's the A.
That's calendar A.
Calendar A.
Right.
So B calendar is the half and half, 88 and 88.
So the only thing is.
Yes, breaking the law, man.
It's not,
Correct. It's not.
everything, it's favorable, everybody likes what calendar B.
And Dr. Shaw and I can look into the actual calendar law, because at one time, the only legal repercussion was that they could withhold the superintendent's salary. I'm not 100% sure that that's still written into the legislation, but again, that's,
And
it's
so
got a
far
little
that
bit of
has-
teeth to it, but so far that has not happened to anybody that has done that. But again, I have to tell you, it's breaking the calendar law.
I mean,
That's my
if-
official
if we-
statement.
If we vote, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, if we vote for the early, and then they say, you can't do it again, and then, okay, and then the next year we go back to the regular. But at least we will have tried, and
I think they would have to fine us.
if 26 or 36, never how many counties you said, school systems have already done that, and there's been no,
29.
And you can, and the board can vote on both calendars to say, we're gonna go with calendar B as our first choice. However, if something
If they're
happens,
gonna fine us.
right, then we're okay with reverting back to calendar A.
You know, a stern letter,
I mean, but the problem is, with that, if people are planning vacations and we tell them, we're gonna do this, I mean, they're not gonna do it. The legislature's not, I don't know, but they're not gonna come and tell us the week before school starts, you can't do that,
Right,
are they?
they have not.
Okay. That would be my vote.
On the News and Observer website, it's reported that 29 districts out of 115 for 24-25 are operating on an illegal school calendar.
How does that compare to the year before? Do we have that?
It was about half that many the year
Half
before.
that.
I believe I read 14 the year before that.
When
Because that's why 15 more joined, because nothing happened to the
Nothing
14.
guys were in the delegates section at NCS.
we were there for a long time.
You were there
yes.
for a long time. That was discussed.
Yeah, that was one of their top 3 things that they were going to the legislation that we would have full control. Now, I think they've brought that to them several times.
Yep.
But it was on the list of things that was still up there as important for the North Carolina School Board Association to.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
It's been shot down.
Yeah.
From what I understand, it's that one gentleman, maybe once he retires or moves on.
Well, I've already kind of heard through the grapevine from some of our representatives that it's going to get shot down again.
Yes, it's the ones far east.
It's the Eastern County.
Yeah.
It was kind of funny when you said Carter,
Carteret.
Carteret County had that, and I'm thinking, well, that's one of the ones that.
Well, I make the motion that we
We
do
have
the
legal
early.
counsel.
I just need to go on record with this board as saying that you don't know what number it is that makes them revert and say, we're gonna take care of everybody. And when I say take care of, I mean follow action against them, injunctive relief against them. That becomes monetarily difficult, potentially. I just feel like I need to tell you that you wanna do what you wanna do, but
I still say we're going back to the new superintendent. What's that gonna take?
exactly, exactly, you might want to consider another year before you do that. I don't know. But I mean,
I understand all that, but if we're serious about improving test scores, I think we need, my opinion, and everybody's got one, so everybody's got a nose, but is that we take the early, do the early.
Are we gonna be brave and do the, at this moment in time, while people are still planning their vacations, take them early, folks, because at this point, this is what we're leaning towards, unless they come to us and say, we're gonna.
So it sounds like he's saying they're waiting for enough of us to break the law so that they can make a statement.
Then they can say
Or
we're gonna
change
withhold
the-
all that
Or
money.
it could go the other way.
Yeah, either way,
It could
or,
go either way.
I don't think they're gonna say, all 35 of you this year are gonna be fined $100,000. But what they may say is, worst case would be, yeah, if you do it next year, we're gonna fine you.
Yeah, I think that's what we'll see. And then maybe we can show them how well it worked and.
I mean, if you've got, if more and more counties do this, then at some point in time, they're gonna realize, this is not what we've been doing is not what the public wants. I make the motion, we take the early calendar.
I'll second that.
Mr. Dozier made a motion to accept the early calendar, Ms. Epps second. Any more discussion?
I was going to go Mr. Garter said way
Also, if I'm understanding, Dr. Shaw, we can put that one up front, but with the reservation that we may have to revert back. So it's not like an exact either or, we're just preferring, right? We prefer B, but we will do calendar A if it causes issues.
Yeah, I mean, and you don't even have to vote necessarily on calendar A tonight, but we have calendar A as the option because we created two. So,
Right.
I mean, it's there.
So tell me the process of when we finish here tonight, who will see this decision?
Historically, the day after the board meeting, because the board meeting's public record, so it will be, if they say, hey, we're going with calendar B will be advertised on our website tomorrow.
So will you repeat your motion, Mr. Dozier?
My computer doesn't work as
Oh,
far as pulling up everything, but,
Was to go
Calendar B.
calendar, whichever is the
Calendar
early.
B. And you second the rest. Okay. Any more discussion? All right, do we need a show of hands for this one? Okay, all right. So all those in favor of going with calendar B, show of hands. All those opposed? So 4-3. Passed.
Y'all will visit us, won't you?
We bring Jill, I'm gonna bring your family.
Y'all will visit us on family day, won't you?
Mitch, we got bond money in the budget.
So that is all that I have for the calendar.
Not for this
Thank
year.
you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Shaw.
We appreciate all that controversy you brought in.
Yeah, you know what, I tried. I'm gonna step back over here now, okay?
Now we'll move on to superintendent
She's
remarks.
leaning that. She's.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. I'll keep this short. I just want to first go on record as saying thank you to the staff for taking the Central Services survey that we put out every year, and apologize to the board. With the website change, we lost the platform that we were using, and so the new platform, I wasn't able to analyze and compile the data the way that it was previously presented to you. But I did want to discuss it with you very briefly. And I also want to say thank you to the central office staff. There's a lot of people here that work very hard every day. But, in an effort for continuous improvement, we will continue doing this. I will try to find another platform where I will be able to analyze the data more thoroughly for you guys next year. But in looking at the data, everything looked in alignment with where we have been performing. Of course, there's always going to be some outliers. There were some very positive comments. There were some negative comments. And I just wanted to go on record again as saying that, our central office works hard. But in an effort for continuous improvement, those comments that were negative will be shared with department heads, and they will have discussions with any of those individuals that may be named in those comments, or talk with those departments where it was like a collective department issue, again, to try to clean up the processes that may have caused any of those issues.
Anybody have anything else? I need a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Mr. Dozier, second. Second, Ms. Ellis. All in favor? Aye. I would like to call this meeting back in order, an open session from our closed session. And I need a motion to adjourn our open session.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Dozier, Ms. Ellis. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?